The Underneath, Part 2, Chase. Adeena and Ahab burst through the fence, sprinting across the nearest street and narrowly avoiding an old sedan whose tires screeched as it skidded to a halt. Looking over her shoulder, Adeena saw the sleep police bridging the gap between them swiftly, wielding various tools, a tire iron, a meat cleaver, and an ice pick. The normally benign objects chilled Adeena's veins in the hands of these strange men. "The highway!" Ahab yelled, pointing at a nearby bridge. "We need to get onto the highway." "I thought that was too dangerous," Adeena yelled back. Ahab glanced back at the sleep police. "We need a different kind of danger right now." They pivoted onto the grass, scurrying toward the car-filled asphalt, the vehicles whizzing past in a blur. As they ran, Ahab fumbled through his messenger bag, producing a short, bright blue rod that reminded Adeena of the rattling rain-stick toys often used to entertain babies. Sure enough, he adjusted something on the rod, and it produced a swooping rattle reminiscent of light rain on a tin roof. "I'm sorry in advance for this," Ahab said as they reached the guardrail separating them from the highway. "You shouldn't have to see what's going to happen." They climbed over the guardrail just as a massive truck rumbled by, nearly flattening them. More cars flickered past them like giant four-wheeled bullets, the drivers honking at the two children as they carefully tried to cross the road. When they reached the center of the road, Ahab stopped, looking back at the sleep police as they vaulted over the guardrail, readying their weapons. They glanced at the incoming traffic, careful to avoid the cars as they menacingly approached. Crouching, Ahab struck the rain stick across the ground like a match across sandpaper, and the device rattled again. Blue sparks leapt from the tip of the rod, but rather than generating flame or electricity like Adeena expected, a thick, shin-high wall of ice spread across the road, crackling upwards. Massive, pointy icicles stretched toward the sky, creating a line of frozen spikes. "Oh, wow," Adeena groaned, backing away. The first car passed over the ice, and the icicles dug into the tires, piercing the rubber. The wheels exploded, and the car swerved, almost striking one of the sleep policemen as it screeched to a stop. "Let's go," Ahab yelled. "We need to leave before they come." "Before who come?" Adeena asked, but the underneath boy just grabbed her hand and pulled her the rest of the way across the highway. As they ran, she heard more vehicles run across the spikes, crashing and flipping into each other, and she cringed at the sounds of screeching metal. When she glanced back, though, she saw the accident victims scrambling away from their cars, flagging down other vehicles, who stopped and allowed them to climb inside before speeding away. Where are they going? She silently wondered. The sleep police weaved through the mass of destroyed cars, drawing closer, and the one with the tire iron was already only a few feet away. He dove forward, grabbing Adeena's ankle, and she collapsed on the edge of the other side of the highway, screaming. The sleep policeman towered over the girl, rearing back to bring his weapon down onto her skull, when something pulled him violently backwards, out of Adeena's line of sight. Adeena sat up, confused, and saw the sleep policeman on the ground, beating his tire iron against what appeared to be a large, black, faceless alligator. The creature's long, toothy mouth was clamped down on the man's leg, and he desperately tried to pull away as the appendage spurted blood. The alligator shook its head from side to side, slamming the sleep policeman repeatedly against a nearby car door until he went limp, dropping his tire iron. A loud hiss finally registered in Adeena's ears, and she slowly turned to survey the wreckage of the highway. Another dozen alligators, varying in size from creature to creature, slithered across the smoking cars, patrolling the area and honing in on the few people remaining in the road, including the other two sleep policemen. The sleep policemen tried to fight off the alligators, but they were quickly overwhelmed, and they silently succumbed to a gruesome, bone-crunching death. Ahab clutched Adeena's shoulder, spinning her around. "Let's go, now." He held up a black metal whistle, putting it in his mouth. Together, the two children climbed down the grassy bank beyond the highway, the screams of the alligator's victims fading away. Suddenly, 4 alligators appeared, circling them, baring their long, black teeth. They slithered closer, hissing, and Adeena shuddered in fear. Next to her, she saw Ahab take a deep breath, blowing into the whistle. The moment the boy exhaled, nausea washed over Adeena like a tidal wave. Her eyes blurred a little as the world began to spin, and she fell to her hands and knees, gripping the grass with clenched fists. Interestingly, though, despite all these side effects, she couldn't actually hear Ahab's whistle. Adeena felt a hand grab hers, and she shakily returned to her feet, allowing Ahab to lead the way. She looked around at the alligators, who were all backing away, hissing, some of them even turning around to leave altogether. They continued further down the hill, aiming for a swath of trees that appeared to be an overgrown park. As they moved, Adeena felt her nausea and dizziness slowly fade away. "What were those?" she mumbled. "Road gators," Ahab answered. "Kind of like your world's vultures. They have a close connection to gaps and often congregate around future accident sites in both worlds to consume the people involved. Creatures of opportunity, but well-known creatures nonetheless. Hence, our deviation onto the highway and my safety whistle." As they drew closer to the trees, Adeena thought she saw eyes watching from within the park. After a moment, what appeared to be a crow emerged, fluttering beyond the treetops and silently soaring overhead, heading back toward the neighborhoods. Adeena glanced at Ahab, but he seemed to not have noticed as he fumbled through his satchel. Smiling triumphantly, he pulled his hand out of the bag, retrieving a copper-colored key. "Now, I just have to find it," he muttered, waving his hands around. "I'm always bad at this." He finally slapped his hand against something solid, though Adeena saw nothing but thin air. Reaching out with his key, he jiggled it for a second before Adeena heard a resounding click, and a door opened up in space, revealing a hallway. Ahab glanced back at Adeena's incredulous expression, shrugging. "Digital camouflage. People don't come near the park anyway, but keeping my hideout invisible helps with security." Why don't they come near the park?" Adeena wondered. "Oh, there's plenty of dangerous animals in the underneath, just like in the overhead," Ahab explained. "But at certain times of the year, heavy plant growth invites malicious insect populations. Skullcap spiders, widow beetles, fire hornets, you name it. As long as you stay out of the thorny parts of the woods, though, you should be okay. That's where they like to nest." Adeena shook her head, chuckling. Skullcap spiders, road gators, sleep police. What a world. Why sleep police anyway? They didn't seem sleepy. "Oh, I don't know what they actually call themselves," Ahab responded, "on account of them never talking. The term sleep police was coined by my colleague." "Your colleague?" Adeena asked. They turned around the corner of the hallway, entering a large room filled with brightly colored, half-built machines. Tables and screens littered the outer walls, showing different perspectives from the outer perimeter of the hideout. Hunched over one of the tables stood a tall, muscular man with salt and pepper hair. The man turned around, revealing a tired, haggard face covered in stubble, a black eye patch over his left eye. Not a pale, bony face, though. A regular face, like Adeena was used to. "Adeena, meet John," Ahab said, gesturing at the man. "He's also from the overhead. John, this is our new partner in crime, Adeena. She's the sister of the boy they took last week." John extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Miss Adeena." Adeena took his hand, shaking it. "Likewise, sir." "Oh, and I guess there's technically someone else you should meet," Ahab continued. John nodded. "Right." The man turned away from the table he'd been working at, waving his hands at what appeared to be a tuxedo-clad ventriloquist dummy, sporting curly brown hair and coal-black eyes. To Adeena's shock, the dummy's mouth flapped open on its own, and it spoke in an excitement-filled whisper. "Hello, my name is Trina. Would you like to be best friends?"